Rainbow Mountain, wow. Rainbow Mountain, if you've never heard of it, it's in the southern Peru region near Cusco. And if you've never heard of it, that's because it used to be covered by a glacier and it's really only been a tourist attraction for 10 to 15 years. Now, the thing is, Rainbow Mountain is around about 5,000 metres, 16,500 feet, give or take. So do you need to be super fit or athletic to visit Rainbow Mountain? Well, spoiler alert, no, and we'll explain why in this video. It's typically done as a day trip from Cusco. The viewpoint at Rainbow Mountain is at 5,050 metres, which is 16,500 feet, which makes some people concerned about getting altitude sickness at that sort of height. So you do need to take some precautions to avoid getting altitude sickness. And typically what most tourist operators, and certainly what I'd recommend, is to spend at least 2 days in Cusco acclimatising. Cusco's at 3,350 metres. Give yourself a couple of days there, and if you've just arrived in Cusco, just recently flown in, particularly if you've flown in from overseas, you're probably going to be dehydrated. During the peak tourist season, months of June through to August, the air in Cusco is quite dry, so that certainly does add to the dehydration that you might experience. So when you're there acclimatising in those first couple of days, it's important to just drink as much water as you can. And when you think you've drunk as much as you can, try and drink some more. It's important to really get as much water as you can into you. Stay hydrated. You can't drink tap water, so when I say drink water, that's bottled water. Don't drink alcohol, because that will aggravate any potential dehydration that you may be experiencing. And during those 2 days of acclimatising, there's plenty of things to see and do in the Cusco area. So you don't have to be just sitting in a hotel room watching Netflix for those days. Get out and about, and that's part of the acclimatisation process, getting out and about and staying hydrated, but seeing the sights in and around Cusco. Another thing that you'll find, well, in a lot of parts of Peru, not just around Cusco, is coca tea. And, that gets touted as being a way to alleviate altitude sickness, but I'd call BS on that. It's really just like a herbal tea. Adding hot water to coca leaves isn't going to release any cocaine or anything like that. It's just like any other herbal tea, to be honest. So how do you get to Rainbow Mountain? Well, there's tour companies galore in Cusco. You don't really need to pre-book this before you get there. Every tour agency in and around the main plaza there will take you. Day tours typically range from 25 through to $90 US. I've done the cheap version and didn't see any issues. I'm assuming that the higher priced tours are either better meals along the way or maybe a more comfortable bus or minivan to get you there. But certainly the $25 tour that I did didn't have any issues with what was provided. Tours, not just to Rainbow Mountain, but to many destinations in the Cusco area, leave very early. So you'll typically find departure times from 4:30 a.m. through to 6 a.m. Everyone's trying to beat everyone else to get there. That doesn't really work if you're all going at the same time to try and beat everyone else. But it is typically around about a 3-hour trip, so hence the need to leave early. And because you're leaving so early, there will be a breakfast stop along the way and toilet break and so on. You can also hire a taxi to take you there, or you could hire a car and drive there yourself. You'll find that the road is paved for about 2/3 of the way, and then once you go off-road, you'll pass through plenty of alpaca farms. So there were 2 car parks about equidistant on the eastern and western side of the mountain. Google Maps will probably take you to the western side if you're going there on your own. The eastern side is where the tour buses go, and that's primarily because that seems to be where there are cafes and toilets and other necessities for you before you start your walk to the mountain. The car parks are around about 4,600 metres, so once you get out of the van or bus or however you've got there, you'll notice that the air's a little bit thinner. And from the car parks, it's typically about a 2.5 to 3 kilometre walk to the viewpoint at the mountain. So at the tourist car park, there's toilets and cafes and horses, and at this point your guide will advise you that the walk will probably take you 60 to 90 minutes. Walking slowly. If you don't feel comfortable though, you can hire a horse or you can hire a quad bike. So if you don't feel up to walking at that altitude, walking for an hour or so at that altitude, there's always a horse that'll get you there, so you can still enjoy the experience, or you can get a quad bike. Okay, so no excuses, you can still get up there, even if you don't feel like walking. But I would encourage you to walk if at all possible. It's not a race. You don't have to get there in record time. You can stop and get your breath plenty of times along the way. I know when I did it, I would have stopped 4 or 5 times for a minute or so just to get my breath and then continue on. But the main thing is take your time, go at the pace that's best for you, and when you get there, you'll feel quite satisfied. It's a very rewarding experience. They typically get 1,000 or more people there a day of all ages. Not many seem to be on the horses. Most people tend to walk there. So you might be thinking, well, with so many people, it's got to be a bit of a circus, doesn't it? Is it really worth going there when there's so many people crawling all over the place? And that's one of the comments that people do make in various review sites, that they get a bit put off by having so many tourists around. It's almost like, tourism's great except for all the other tourists, right? And that's one of the reasons why people, or some people, want to make their own way there so they can get there later in the day when the tourist buses tend to have left. But you've got to put this in context. 1,000 plus people during the course of a day, say during the course of 4 or 5 hours. And once you get up to the viewpoint, it's not like you're crammed into the Louvre, into a tiny little room to see a little tiny painting at the end of a wall, right? You've got these large vistas at 360 degrees. So even though there are a lot of people up there and it is a bit of a circus, I mean, that is true, I don't really think that it detracts from the experience. Once you get up to the viewpoint at 5,050 metres, you'll find that there are more stalls where you can buy snacks, water. You can even buy a beer if you feel that way inclined. And I think I did see some whiskey as well, but a Snickers bar will cost you about 8 soles once you get up there. But rest assured, there's plenty of things for you to buy if you feel hungry or thirsty. And of course, there's plenty of llamas around wearing sunglasses if you want to get your standard tourist pic. So yes, it's a circus, but in a good way. It's a good circus. Now, if you've got time, I'd recommend you doing the walk to Red Valley, which is about another 20 minutes to an elevation probably another 50, 100 metres higher. There's 2 pathways you can take. Along the way, you'll have to pay another 20 soles to a lady that'll collect your money, so make sure you have that cash available if you're planning to do that. And there's some nice viewpoints there, looking back to the Rainbow Mountain viewpoint and also looking down into Red Valley. So should you do it? Absolutely. Don't be put off by the altitude. Again, as I said at the beginning, make sure you're acclimatised. This is not something you'd want to get off the plane at Cusco and do immediately. Give yourself those couple of days in and around Cusco to see the sights. Stay hydrated, drink plenty of water, then drink some more. But definitely do it. And if you find that you're having difficulty when you arrive at the car park, take the horse. But it's a great experience. I mean, the views are amazing. So definitely mark that down as a must-do when you're in the Cusco area.